Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a cubic deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful OTK deck that summons out an amazing boss monster, Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, which is a crazy powerful card. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come for our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. This card is our main boss monster and is absolutely broken. This card has the ability it cannot be normal summoner set, it must be special summoned from your hand by revealing 3 other cubic cards in your hand with different names, and cannot be special summoned other ways. Also, it's unaffected by other monsters' activated effects, whose original attack is 3,000 or less. And when this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can activate this effect. This card can make a second attack during that battle phase, making it super easy to OTK your opponent. Also, during your end phase, each player takes 3,000 points of damage, but you can only use that effect once per turn. But it helps you just end a game by doing 3,000 points of burn damage to your opponent. This card is an amazing boss monster. It's actually one of my favorite monsters in the game because of how powerful it actually is. We then play 3 copies of Dueling. Dueling is one of the best normal summons in the entire deck. This card is crazy powerful with the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send a cubic card from your deck to the graveyard, which is an extremely powerful effect because we have a lot of cards that we want in the graveyard, making this card a definite 3 of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Yugioh. Yugioh is an extremely defensive card in the deck and a really powerful card to be able to use. It cannot be destroyed by a battle, and at the end of the damage step, if this card battle an opponent's monster, you can place this card face up in your spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell card, and if you do, place a cubic counter on that opponent's monster. Monsters with cubic counters cannot attack, and also they have their effects negated, and if this card is treated as a continuous spell card by this effect, during your main phase, you can special summon this card from your spell and trap card zone back to your monster zone, which is a really cool effect. This card is really weird, but I absolutely love Yugioh. We then play a single copy of Buster Gunneal. You just play this card as a 1-of in the build to be able to use as a name in the deck. And then we play a single copy of Yugioh, the Cubic King. This card actually does burn damage, which is really cool to be able to use this card in the build because it has a great ability. It cannot be normal summoner set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by sending a cubic monster you control to the graveyard. And if summoned this way, this card gains 800 attack, and if it's special summoned from your hand, inflicts 800 points of damage to your opponent, which is a pretty cool effect to be able to just do a little bit more burn damage to your opponent so that you can go in for game. I love that about this card. It's just a really awesome 1-of in the build, especially so you can have an additional name in the deck to be able to summon out your copy of Crimson Nova. We then play 3 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is definitely a 3-of in the build, just to help you summon out your copy of Dueling from the deck, because when this card is summoned to your side of the field, you actually change it to defense position, and it also has the ability that you can discard a spell card to special summon a level 4 monster from your deck, but that monster cannot attack this turn. But that's totally fine because we're just going to be able to discard a spell card like Cubic Karma, so we can summon out our copy of Dueling directly from our deck and send either Cubic Karma or a copy of Unification from our deck to the graveyard to get the exact card we need in the grave for our combos. We then play 3 copies of Magician Souls. Magician Souls is a really good option to be able to play in the deck, especially since a bunch of our spells and traps want to be in the graveyard, and this just makes for a really good draw engine in the build. We then play a single copy of Illusion of Chaos. Illusion of Chaos is how we search out our copy of Magician Souls, and it's actually our only spellcaster target in the entire deck to send to graveyard, so we can summon our copy of Magician Souls, but it's really all you need in the deck. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Reasoning. Reasoning is definitely a one-of in the build because you play so many monsters that cannot be normal summoner set, and we play so many different levels of monsters, and we also play a bunch of spells and traps that we want to get in the graveyard, so this card is just a powerhouse of a spell card to be able to activate this card and be able to get a bunch of cards into our graveyard. It doesn't even matter if we get to summon the monster from our deck, we just want to be able to dump a bunch of cards to the graveyard like Cubic Karma and Unification. We then play a single copy of Triple Tactics Thrust. Thrust is really good as a one-of in the build to be able to search out the exact card that you need, like your copies of Reasoning or your copies of Talents. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Triple Tactics Talent is really good as a 2-of in the build, and you can probably play 3 copies of this and no copies of Thrust if you wanted to be able to have a more budget option. But this card is really good in the deck, so it lets you draw 2 cards, take control of an opponent's monster, or look at your opponent's hand and choose a card from it and shuffle it in the deck, which is such a cool effect to be able to use, to be able to get into basically the exact cards that you need by using that draw 2. We then play 2 copies of Cubic Durama. Durama is really cool as a 2-of in the deck, but you really don't need more than 2 copies of this card. This card has the ability to take no battle damage from attacks involving your cubic monsters, making VJOM absolutely crazy. This card also has the ability during your main phase, you can send a cubic card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw a card. You can also banish this card from the graveyard and then target a cubic monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand, which is such a cool effect to be able to use. We then play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Goods is good. This card is super helpful. It's sending the exact spell or trap you need to the graveyard, like your copy of Cubic Karma or Unification. We then play 3 copies of Cubic Wave. Cubic Wave is an awesome OTK piece for the deck that just basically doubles the attack of your copy of your Crimson Nova to help you go in for game. This card lets you target a cubic monster you control and a face-up monster your opponent controls, and the attack of that monster you control becomes double its current attack points, boosting your copy of Crimson Nova to 6,000. And if it does, the attack of your opponent's monster becomes half its current attack points, which is a really cool effect to be able to use just to help you OTK your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Cubic Karma. Cubic Karma is really good as a 3-of in the build because this card boosts up our monster's attack points, but it's also a road-up. And if this card's in the graveyard, you can banish this card in the graveyard to add a cubic monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really cool effect to be able to add the exact card that you need. But this card also has the ability, when this card is activated, you can target a cubic monster that you control, except a copy of VJOM, and send any number of VJOMs from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Then, that monster gains 800 attack for each card that was sent to the graveyard by this effect, which is a really cool ability. I love that about this card. It's just a really cool 3-of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. Forbidden Droplets makes it so easy to OTK your opponent, which is why I'm playing this card as a 3-of in the deck to basically just turn the opponent's field off and go in for game. This card is really good in the deck to also half your opponent's monster's attack points so that you can swing in with your copy of Crimson Nova and do massive damage. So, that's it for these spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Cubic Ascension. I really like this card as a 1-of in the build. It's actually one of my favorite artworks in the entire deck. This card has the ability, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon a VJOM from your deck. And if you do, change the attack target to it and perform damage calculation. And if your opponent's life points are at least 2,000 or higher than yours, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a VJOM from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then, if only your opponent controls a monster when this effect was activated, you can special summon 2 more copies of VJOM to your side of the field, which is a great ability just to be able to summon out a bunch of VJOMs to your side of the field to be able to protect your life points. We then play 3 copies of Unification. Unification is an extremely weird card, but really powerful for the deck, and one of the most powerful cards to be able to send to the graveyard off your copy of Dueling. This card has the ability to let you fusion summon a cubic fusion monster from your X deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. But the main effect that we use on this card is actually not to be a fusion trap, but actually the ability that if a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle or by card, or just it leaves the field for any reason, you can actually banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower cubic card from your hand or deck. ignoring its summoning conditions. And if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle by card effects this turn, which is an amazing ability that if your copy of your Duza leaves the field, you can banish this card from the graveyard, and it's not a once per turn. So if you have multiple of this card in the graveyard, you can just keep banishing them to be able to summon out more copies of Duza to your side of the field and send more copies of this card to the graveyard so you can actually link climb into some really powerful cards. This card is definitely a 3 of the deck and such a powerful card to be able to send to the graveyard to be able to just basically climb into anything that you need. You definitely will see this in the combos for this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's check out the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with a single copy of Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord. You rarely summon this card out to your side of the field, but it does come up every so often. But it's really awesome to be able to summon out this card to your side of the field, because when you do summon it to your side of the field, you're usually going to instantly win the game. We then play a single copy of Topologic Zero Boros. Zero Boros is one of the most powerful link monsters in the entire deck when you combine it with your copy of Crimson Nova, because Crimson Nova is unaffected by monsters with 3,000 attack or less. This card has the ability that you cannot summon or set monsters to an extra monster zone this card points to, and it also gains 200 attack for each banished card. And if another monster is special summoned to a zone this link monster points to, while this monster is on the field, banish all cards on the field. Also, once per turn, during the standby phase of the next turn after this effect was banished by its own effect, you can special summon this banished card. This card is a board wipe with your copy of Crimson Nova that'll actually be showing off in the 3 combos that you need to know to play this deck video, which you guys should definitely check out when it's on the channel. But you guys should really check that out, because this card is absolutely broken with that combo. Because all you basically do is summon out your copy of Crimson Nova to a zone this card points to, and it banishes everything on the field except your copy of Crimson Nova, because Crimson Nova is unaffected, because this card has 3,000 original attack points, making this one of the most powerful cards you can summon out in the extract to board wipe your opponent and swing in for game. We then play a single copy of Access Code to be able to pop multiple cards on the field and be able to go in for game. Plus, it comes out absolutely massive in this deck. We then play a single copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. It's just a really good defensive option to be able to play in this build, making it a really good 1-of in the deck. Play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of Selene to link climb in the deck, because our copy of Summoner Monk is a spellcaster, plus Magician's Souls is a spellcaster, so it's pretty easy to be able to use this card to link climb into our copy of Access Code. We then play a single copy of the Dark Charmer. Dark Charmer is really good in the deck as a 1-of, because we do play a lot of darks in this deck. Play a single copy of Pentastag, because this card is really good at helping you do piercing damage, which is why I play this card as a 1-of in the build. 1 copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is amazing in the deck, but you could play Nightmare Phoenix if you want to instead for a more budget option. But this card is really good in the deck to be able to use as a double interruption. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena, so we can go for a copy of SP Little Knight or Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn, or even go for a copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax to basically make it invincible. We then play a single copy of Relinquished Anima just to be able to gobble up opponent's monsters. 1 copy of Gustav Max. This card is really important for the deck to be able to play, because if you summon this card out to your side of the field, usually you can just do the last 2,000 points of damage to your opponent to end the game, but it also prevents you from taking 3,000 points of damage off your copy of Crimson Nova, because Crimson Nova is a level 10, so you can use 2 Crimson Novas to make this card. We then play a single copy of Assembled Nightingale. This is just so we can make our copy of Zeus. 1 copy of Downer. Downer is really good in the deck as a 1-of, because this card can just be overlaid on top of your copy of your Assembled Nightingale to basically just get an additional material under your copy of Zeus. And finally, we play a single copy of Zeus, because this card is an amazing board wipe in the deck to basically just summon out to your side of the field so that you can board wipe the field. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a cubic deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try, and keep an eye out for the 3 combos that you need to know to play this deck. I promise you they're wild, and it's really cool to be able to just OTK your opponent with cubics. It's such a fun deck to be able to play, and it's a really awesome deck. Hopefully we get some support for this deck soon. So that's going to do for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.